This is Paul Murray Live.
Thank you, Sherry. Another wonderful program. See you again tomorrow night. Come on into the Man Cave. We've got an awful lot to get to tonight. Will it surprise you that Green Senator Mehreen Faruqi is out and about telling the school kids of Australia that tomorrow the best thing you can do for your country is not to finish the day at school, but instead is to join those who are planning to protest against the great and evil foe that, of course, is Pauline Hanson. Tomorrow, university students will take time out from arts lectures, and high school students will take time out potentially for even the preparation for their own HSC or Year 12 exams. And there is a politician who thinks that's a great idea. The Green Senator and Deputy Party Leader from New South Wales cheering him on.
You're telling me that the far right is on the rise? That parties like Pauline Hanson's One Nation want to roll back women's rights, workers' rights, environmental protections? That you're sick of One Nation's racist, sexist, anti-worker and divisive politics and want to join thousands of students on Thursday, 13th August in a protest around the country? And you want my permission? Of course. Hope you've made a big sign. Have fun.
Do you like the conviction by which she's reading the permission note and double-checking what the talking points were? Now, of course, remember, one of the many people that have spoken about what they're planning to do tomorrow, and it is every Australian's democratic right to be able to express themselves however they wish, fine, fair enough, but there has to actually be a semblance of truth around all of this. Remember the student leader who was talking to Tom Elliott on 3AW with this fanciful garbage about the threat to, and I quote, hundreds of kids at her school.
I think there's absolutely nothing more important that that students could do on Thursday other than come out to the protest. If Pauline Hanson was Prime Minister, hundreds of my classmates at my school would be deported. So this is an issue of prime importance to me. Pauline Hanson is making politics more fascist right here, right now. We don't have the time to wait until, after exams, to wait until we've got a degree if we want to stop this.
Really? This is the garbage that is being spread from supposedly the more informed and the better amongst us to those who may get all their information from their classmates. That Pauline Hanson and One Nation's position, the far right's position, is for hundreds of school kids in every single school, in every single suburb, in every single state in the entire country are about to be booted. Now, of course, the position of One Nation, the Liberal Party, and you would hope the federal government, is that if you are in the country illegally, then you don't get to stay in the country. The only people who get to stay in the country are the people who have the appropriate visa, the permanent residency, or the citizenship that either comes from birth or you apply for. There would not be hundreds of kids at any school, let alone at every school. But of course, facts don't matter when you're on the right side of history, man, like these ones on social media.
You don't need teachers to tell us you're a racist. Students in Queensland are going to walk out on this Thursday to fight against Pauline Hanson. High School Anti-Capitalist is going to have a meeting on this Sunday at 12 o'clock. If you hate Pauline Hanson, you have to be there to learn how to fight her and her racism.
Are you a high school student that hates Pauline Hanson? Then you need to be there at the nationwide student protest against her on August 13th.
Today, I'm asking people why they're coming to the National Day of Action student walkout against Pauline Hanson.
I'm walking out against Pauline Hanson and One Nation because she's the biggest Islamophobe in Australia.
So look, hundreds, thousands, who knows, who cares? But again, if one of the reasons is because you think there's about to be mass deportations at schools and universities, please. There's a bit of cosplay going on here, but anyway, they have every right to do whatever they want to. But I want to see how some of the media, who should know better because they have access to all of the information that I have, that all of the information that you have, because we've shown you about some of the central nonsense at the heart of the supposed urgent reason to take to the streets. We'll have a look at how Barnaby Joyce has been treated by the media when he says, look, there's probably a good chance that socialist teachers are behind all of this. Now, they put socialist with all the sort of punctuation around it like BS, not true, he just made it up. His quote when asked about this is, do you honestly believe that 3 weeks ago those children of their own volition were saying, I think I'm going to have a political protest against a political party? No, they just want to go to school, play soccer with their mates. Socialist teachers, left-wing teachers are making their statement and using the kids as a prop, and that is very, very wrong. Of course, he's correct. But this concept of socialist teachers, it's just a right-wing fantasy, right? No. Self-identifying, as is the left's want on oh so many issues, via the internet, socialists in schools, where, of course, if you want to click on the link, you can go through and see the socialists in schools get involved with the socialists in schools. They're not hiding. And remember, there are literal teachers who call themselves socialists in schools who will be running at the Victorian state election. It is not made up. The punctuation is incorrect. Socialist teachers. Yeah, they're there by their own announcement, let alone, obviously, what they believe to be plenty more that won't wear the badge, won't wear the sticker, but they might fill out the survey. They might follow them on social media. Again, every person has a right to political protest. My issue with public protests like this, about issues like this, is that whatever you believe to be the original reason, the people who end up out on the fringes of it, the ones who will have the nastiest signs, say the silliest chants, do the dumbest things, well, they're going to be the people who everyone focuses on, and whether you claim that it was in your name or not, it is what the protest will be remembered for. But not everyone who's in school or university is in on the idea. In fact, there's a couple willing to look into a camera to push back.
Students in Queensland are going to walk out on this Thursday to fight against Pauline Hanson. These kids are so ignorant and uneducated about history that they truly think that calling Pauline Hanson a Nazi is an accurate depiction of what she believes in.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Now, you know when there's information which is presented about the economy and it's nationwide and it's the picture of the country, apparently this story is considered a good sign for the economy. Now, of course, there are lots of people who, of course, go to work each and every day. Not enough go to the office, but that's another conversation. But there's equally an awful lot of people who are looking for work. There's obviously more people who work than are looking for work. But we learned today via the SEEK organisation that more people are applying for fewer jobs at record rates, according to the people who would know. This marks the 7th consecutive month that applications per job ads have increased while the number of job ads has decreased. SEEK, one of Australia's biggest job application sites, released its monthly employment report on Wednesday, where the numbers were in there for all to read. After rising 1.4% in June, applications per jobs have reached the highest level on record, according to the website. At the same time, the number of companies looking to hire has declined. The numbers show the decline mainly on the shoulders of New South Wales, whereas Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia has actually had a little increase in the number of job ads. But of course, what the economists will view this as, what the people who view things from sort of the 10,000 metre perspective is, this is fantastic, right? You know, this is full employment. Full employment is something that's excellent for an economy. And I understand that argument. But remember, in Australia, regardless of whether it is a Liberal government, a Labor government, or the Greens, Teal, One Nation, whatever into the future, here's the reality. To classify as somebody who works in Australia, to classify as being employed, to classify as employment, you of course only need to work a couple of hours a week. So the most casual, most part-time job is counted as well as the 40-hour, 50-hour a week job. In fact, there are 822,800 people who are part-time workers in Australia who say they want to work more hours. So we don't just have a scenario where the number of jobs is disappearing, the number of people applying is increasing, the number of people who end up getting a part-time job, well, it's not enough hours that they can work, want to work, and obviously money that comes in. These are the numbers from the Bureau of Statistics. They show us here, pretty simply, all the different demographics. from males 15 to 24 on the left of the screen, on the right of the screen, females 65 and over. Females 15 to 24, 200,000 part-time workers want more hours. Males who are 15 to 24, 150,000 of those people want to work more hours. Collectively, 822,800 people. Oh, but it's full employment. Everything is awesome. Again, the part-time workers who want full-time work, not just more hours, but full-time work. Males aged 25 to 44, 80% that are currently working part-time want to work full-time. Same age group of females, it is the best part of 60%. So yes, technically, and I understand, and I remember my high school economics about what full employment means and why that is can be construed as a good thing for the country. But in terms of the individuals, when you've basically got the best part of 1 million people who are able and want to work longer and harder but don't get the opportunity because the gig isn't there, or the people that are on part-time who want to go full-time but the gig isn't there, well, then you have a system where, yeah, tick, you got a job, but it's not enough to make your way in an ever-increasing, expensive lifestyle that we have here in Australia. And again, this is one of those prisms that people need to think about when we think about politics, right? About whose vote is up for grabs. Okay, people on the right who've only voted a certain way, not changing anytime soon. People on the left only voted a certain way, not changing anytime soon. But there are things that will move people around, like somebody who has a policy to move more part-time workers to full-time work, to be able to create scenarios where it's easier for small business to be able to provide more hours for people to work. Another example is one that I tuned into for you last night, which is under what level of ownership you have on a house. Because the polling in the News24 Pulse, well, it bounces around. If you've paid off your house because you worked hard, 35% of people, the top primary choice is the Coalition, One Nation and Labor at 25 and 26%. The Coalition starts to fall away. Labor takes out number one, and unbelievably so, with people that are paying off a mortgage, despite the fact that there have been 15 interest rate rises. A third of voters still want to stick with the mob who have overseen a huge amount of pressure. But that One Nation number of 28% also speaks to the people that are under such financial squeeze and why they are moving. And for those that are renting, this number absolutely floored me. One Nation and Labor equal number one choice of renters. Number one choice of renters. Between them, they got more than 50% of the vote. Now, there would be plenty of people who would assume that the rental class wouldn't be buying what One Nation is selling. Well, they are. You want to talk about not buying what they are selling, the Coalition, because let's be honest, what is the identifiable policy or grunt that they have for people that are renting? Don't throw something at the television. That's just the scorecard. The opportunity for them to grow is there. The opportunity to hold the Labor Party back is pretty obvious when it comes to mortgage holders. And it also speaks to, again, what I've talked about before, where in Australia, yes, there are the hard lines about left and right, but the real divides that are pushing us into different corners and maybe new corners, in some ways, it comes to housing. In others, in my view, it's about whether you're paying attention or not paying attention, whether the country's working for you or not working for you. Ross Gittins wrote about this today when he was having a look into the reporting of our mate Kos Samaras. He says that Australian voters are now split three ways, but not by party. In terms of Labor supporters, again, he's quoting here what Kos has had to say, the Labor bloc is now overwhelmingly inner and middle ring metropolitan. It is university educated, it rents or has recently bought a home. Now remember, just as many people renting vote Labor as do One Nation, or so that's what they're going to do at the next election. It's overwhelmingly under the age of 45. It's heavily first and second generation migrant. It is anchored in the public sector and the care economy. One Nation supporters. Its voters are not the protest vote of the 1990s. They are mortgaged, asset-stretched, outer suburban, working-class people of Western Sydney and Melbourne's outer north and west. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is not to say, yay for me because I've been telling you about it, but the word is spreading. People are starting to see what we've been on the inside of here for months. These voters work in trades, transport and freight and what's left of manufacturing. They are mortgage-stressed Gen X and boomers, households that they bought into the dream of an asset-based prosperity and are now servicing the debt without the wage growth that was supposed to come with it. I found all this stuff amazing. By the way, yes, many are Anglo-Celtic in descent, but a rapidly rising second-generation migrant component, particularly of the children of the post-war migration wave, principally from Europe, in Western Sydney or out of Melbourne. The description of Liberal supporters here, and again, I know this isn't every person and there'll be lots of different versions of this, but apparently these are the three pots that they're looking at. Its remaining voters are concentrated in high socio-economic stature suburbs. Now, this isn't true for every electorate, but Sydney's North Shore, Melbourne's East and Bayside. University-educated professionals in finance, law, corporate management. They own their own homes outright. Well, we showed you that in the polling before. And are self-funded retirees. They're the investment class. They're also Anglo-Celtic, predominantly over the age of 55. You see, my view about this program, my view about you watching this program, my view about sharing the content that appears online about this program, is that similar to people who love to talk about sport, they love to get right into the nitty-gritty of sport, about why this team won, why this team lost. And that's why I get into this detail and to this data. Because, yes, it is very easy to turn around and to be the football fan who simply always passion tips their own team, regardless of form. And, yes, you pass the purity test, but you're probably not going to win the tipping competition. Now, again, what I try to do here each and every night, and the reason I keep mentioning this is, again, to the many, many new people that are watching us right now due to News24 and the rebrand, and lots of people who are seeing the advertising, seeing the billboards and coming in and checking us out, is that we will all have our opinion. I will have a strong opinion on things, but I try to make sure that the mortar between the bricks, the thing that holds the opinion together, is the information. So there's no shocks when people wake up. Because remember how the left was shocked when Donald Trump won, was shocked when Scott Morrison held on in 2019? There will be no shocks if you pay attention, and that is, in my view, one of the great divides in Australia. Forget left and right. It's do you pay attention or not? By watching, by spreading the word, you are paying attention, and I very much appreciate it. A couple of days ago, I told you that there are 300 would-be terrorists who have now moved into the de-radicalisation phase across Australia. That's not over the past 20 years, that's right now. 300 are in the de-radicalisation system. The de-radicalisation systems, however, poorly targeted and are redundant, according to a terror chief who's been giving evidence at the Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion Royal Commission. Further reporting on this, the new band of hate radicalising Australian teens, because sadly they get younger and they're sucked in by more of the wild stuff on the internet. Australia's counter-terrorism chief has warned of a rise in youth radicalisation fuelled by online extremism, as he raised alarm about the spread of harmful rhetoric from foreign propaganda machines and social media platforms who have no regard to content moderation. Experts appearing before the Royal Commission said a couple of days ago that they were warning of nihilistic violent extremism. And that, of course, means, what's the point? What's the point? That's what nihilism in part means. Was pushing young people to pursue violence for its own sake, as government response to radicalisation is currently under the microscope. There was a bit more about this from an expert from New South Wales.
Nihilistic violent extremism has become a bit of a catch cry for misanthropic, violent, gore, objectionable spaces online where meshed ideas are mixing together. And we're living in a rather complex, divisive, provocative and emotive socio-political climate, which I think must be incredibly difficult for younger, increasingly vulnerable cohorts to navigate. Short, sharp, very intense radicalisation trajectories.
So as always, the story is pay attention to what people are doing online, have conversations about the news, see what the attitudes are that are in your house, in your wider family, in the wider circle of friends as well, and try to work out exactly whether people are starting to wobble or not. And again, you can't save everyone from everything, but we all need to be at 100% of vigilance. We all need to be at 100%, firstly, to save our fellow citizens from ultimate harm. Secondly, to save our fellow citizens from falling into rabbit holes that can only lead to terrible places. Now, remember the old term, go woke, go broke? Well, there was no better example of it than the Bud Light Beer Company. Remember a couple of years ago when they decided to move from the traditional bloke-focused, NFL football-focused, and they decided to let Dylan Mulvaney become kind of a face of the brand for a little while, and it was a different face than we're used to.
Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out.
So my mate Kid Rock didn't like that, and millions of other people didn't like that. Bob's way of showing it, uniquely Kid Rock.
Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch. Have a terrific day.
And this really cost them. Go woke, go broke. The company that put Bud Light out lost the best part of $1 billion because people went, sorry, what are you doing? What are you standing for? What's the brand? Okay, we get it. You know, we want as many people to be joining it as possible. But really, Dylan Mulvaney, March Madness, 365 Days of Womanhood. Another example, Jaguar. Good old-fashioned cars that, yeah, at times were a little bit fuddy-duddy, but still beautiful sports cars, wonderful pieces of engineering. Sorry, I'm just sort of falling off into a dreamland here. Beautiful cars are on TV. Well, all of that, of course, was oh so passé. I mean, we can't celebrate that at all. So the rebranding looked like this colour vomit. How fast between 0 and 100? Well, guess what? The decision has now been made from Jaguar to repivot the way they engage and to focus on the speed of the car, the performance of the car, the broom broom of the broom broom, rather than the whatever the hell that was. All right, let's get into the debate. Looking forward to this right now. Lucy Zelich is going to join us in a moment or two's time. She, like me, is bewildered and fired up at the same time about the kids that are going to go marching against the mass deportation plan that doesn't exist. Stephen Conroy will be representing the government because, of course, he's only ever here to help. Megan Kelly, before we're done as well, with a pretty funny story about why the fire department turned up to her house. Big night. Thanks for watching. Well, let's see how often they agree not. This evening, none other than the wonderful Lucy Zelich. Not because you're disagreeable, it's just Stephen Conroy can be. And, of course, he joins us now from Melbourne. All right, so let's get to this. All right, now, who knows? Judging by social media, it'll be the biggest protest in the history of Australia. Judging by the actual population, no, it won't be. But, Lucy, like me, you're unsurprised, but still it is surprising how silly some of the stuff is going to be tomorrow with these students that are taking, you know, the day off, and as I showed before, one of the organisers, because hundreds of kids at my school will be deported.
Can you imagine the level of misinformation that's gone into the fear-mongering that surrounds all of this? Look, I want to say this from the outset, and I wrote a column about this recently because I was really genuinely alarmed. And I don't think enough people know about what's going on at the university level, at the youth level, when it comes to the type of indoctrination that's occurring, the propaganda, the very clear agenda agenda to steer them towards this radical left kind of extremism. Because when you've got these young kids that are screaming into a camera about F capitalism and socialism is the cure, do you know what the definition of socialism is? Do you know what it actually means? Have you spoken to people who have lived in socialist or / communist countries? And can you please name me a country that has been successful when it comes to socialism? Venezuela, Cuba, East Germany, Soviet Russia. These kids don't know what they're talking about, Paulie.
Trots, their response is always the same. Well, it's not that socialism and communism fails. It's just that, America undermines it. Rah, rah, rah. You know it all, right?
Well, they all think that they can do it better, right?
Yeah, I mean, not because he believes it. He's just heard this crap for years. By the way, this is, I think, from ANU, this might be.
This is. So a friend actually sent me this, and shout out, Trishy, thank you for sharing this. And she said this is on the campus at the Australian National University in Canberra. And if you have a look at what some of it's saying there, it's encouraging people to read Marx, read Lenin.
Pauline is the symptom.
Pauline is the symptom. Socialism is the cure. And you listen to what some of their, their comments and their rhetoric are. And again, as I said, it's really quite alarming. The organiser, Yasmin Johnson, who's also put together these pro-Palestine movements, she testified also at the Royal Commission, set up that encampment at her university. She came out and was quoted as saying, students can see very well that what Pauline Hanson and One Nation want is a nastier, more vicious and oppressive future for them. Please don't talk to me about oppression.
Well, but also, I'm so glad that she got a spot at the Royal Commission, but Josh Frydenberg didn't.
No, the important people with actual valuable contributions didn't. But please spare me these discussions about oppression in this democratic, beautiful country of ours, of which you have benefited and profited from. I hear you, with nothing to say about what's occurring in Afghanistan. Try and be a citizen. China! But try and be a citizen in Iran and speak out against the regime, and then tell me what oppression is. So these kids have been indoctrinated, and it's a problem.
Stephen, this, of course, is not new. There have been trots since trots... Anyway, for some period of time. All right, and yes, it always bubbles up in the same thing. And in the same way, I always put it this way, right, which is... there needs to be a Batman and a Joker, right? You can't be Batman if there's not the Joker, and you can't be Joker if there's not Batman, right? So here we go again, where Pauline Hanson, second time around, where the kids do what Mum and Dad did, and, she's the Joker or Batman.
Look, I'd like to be disagreeable as you introduce me, but I'm on a 100% unity ticket with you.
Peace in our time!
Both of you. Look, I'm even embarrassed to say that's my old campus.
Disagreeable, I'll say.
All I would say is I spent... at the ANU is my old campus, but I did spend a good fun few years fighting the Trots and the Marxists and the Leninists at ANU back in the 80s and generations before me in the 60s and 70s. The problem that we've got now is that the internet is a sewer. Online is a sewer. People get trapped in their echo chambers, just like the MAGA crazies get trapped in theirs. The anti-vaxxers get trapped in theirs. You've got the Trots and the socialists trapped in theirs. Interestingly, though, just to make 2 points, the last Victorian state election, the Victorian socialists, I think, got nearly 6% of the vote. They hadn't run for years and years and years.
Makes sense in Victoria.
And in Victoria, they got nearly 6% of the votes.
Well, no, but this is the thing where the hard left number matters, right? And I think it's a really important point, right? Which is the thresholds, particularly for upper house, all the rest of it. I know they've changed group voting tickets, all the rest of it here, right? But it's one thing for people to roll their eyes about the Greens, roll their eyes about Victorian socialists. The hard left is very loud, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is a surprise upper house result in at least one bit of inner city Melbourne.
Yep, look, it's going to be fascinating to watch. You'll have the regional areas, the rural areas, the outer suburban areas going to be voting, more One Nation than ever before. You'll have some of those trotty green inner city areas being more hard left. So I think it is going to be a fascinating situation to see what happens in the upper house, particularly as they've changed the voting system now, which will largely exclude very small parties. I think One Nation will still get a strong vote. I think the Libs will still have a reasonable vote, probably, ahead of One Nation if you're looking at the latest polling. Labor will have its traditional core vote. So I think it'll be a fascinating evening if you're watching the Upper House, which usually takes a few more days to count than the actual day.
See, this is the thing. You know how there were always those people at school. Well, you know, most people like music, but there were always those kids at school who didn't like what was on the radio. They liked the independent track that had just been, turned up at the independent record shop, right? That's kind of Stephen and I, because we will be following the Upper House race in Victoria months out and for weeks after.
Despite all of our disagreements, I feel like you guys were cooler than them. Like, a lot of those guys actually needed something to make them edgy and interesting. Do you know what I mean? You guys are edgy and interesting.
I'd like to think...
It's a not-so-dark secret about how boring I can be, Lucy.
Paul and I were cool at school. I don't think so.
Correct. All right.
Never made a cool group.
Correct. All right. Now, John Howard has offered again his perspective about how the Liberal Party can find its way through its fight for the right, happening right now, of course, with One Nation. Chris Kenny is looking forward to this in a documentary in a couple of weeks' time, which is going to be fascinating to see. He has all of the key players and, most importantly, people on the ground and their experience and their changes here. But, Lucy, I want to come at this from, again, a slightly different view, and that is to go back to the polling that I first talked about last night that I've again doubled down on tonight, which is about the idea that, OK, people who own their own home, largest group support, their support right now is going to be for the Liberal Party. Amazingly, while it's 4 points down, Labor and One Nation kind of close for people that are paying off a mortgage. But unbelievably, the equal leader among renters is One Nation and Labor. And the reason I mention all of that in relation to the coalition, 9% of renters in this country say they would plan to vote for the coalition. If they want to look at where is something going wrong, there's a lot of things that might be going wrong, but that is an absolute screamer that if 9% of renters are engaging with you, you have got more problems than just a coat of paint.
It's true, but we keep hearing time and time again this Albanese government trying to dress up the housing situation as though it's a positive, right? And to be looking at what we're seeing being reported by the major banks saying that home applications are down, while they're also, by the way, raking in record profits, which we've seen in the break today. But this is something that it means a lot to young families like myself. I too am a renter, but we made extraordinary sacrifices when it came to home ownership so that I could be home with my children in their formative years. I'm one of those people that is feeling the current economic climate because, as I said, I'm someone that wants to be home with their children, but our tax system doesn't allow for that.
Correct.
And when we're looking at what we're seeing at the moment, I don't know, even though I'm not a homeowner, I can't imagine being happy that the value of houses is coming down. We're talking about now having to borrow more than what your home is worth. That's not a positive situation for families like mine, Paulie, but it's being dressed up as though, hey, look at what we've done for young Australians.
Well, correct. And also the idea that anyone above a certain imagined line of difficulty that seems to be talking about a financial circumstance like this lovely, wonderful, smart lady on TV. Well, it's just because her privilege is being taken away. Or it's like, no, bullshit. Like the reality is wherever you are up and down the sliding scale, the walls are closing in financially. 3 million people, Stephen, and I think this is a really important point about the Labor Party, right? That I think what is holding Labor back from being able to repeat what happened in 25 is interest rates. Now, we know the Reserve Bank and your issues about where they sit, but the reality is that mortgage holders, the Redbridge polling before the last election, they were in the Liberal camp until the rates started to fall and then they swung very heavily back towards Labor. So the housing picture and those three pictures that I've spoken about for the past couple of nights, I think it's a really interesting way of looking at it apart from just Team Red, Team Blue. Am I off with the fairies and doing fractions of fractions, or is there actually something to this?
No, I think that you're spot on in looking at the changes that are occurring in the economic circumstances, and there is different groups, and those three groups you've talked about. So I talk about, if I can just talk about a macro point and then respond to Lucy. So disagreeable Steve is back.
Yes.
Okay. So that renter question, when for the last 3-4 months since the budget, the Liberals have been saying it's a disaster, Labor's change is a disaster, they're going to kill renters. Well, that poll says they're not buying the Liberal story. They're really not buying the Liberal story.
Yes, but the non-government
and the Liberal
story.
Party are representing the status quo.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're not buying the status quo being offered by the Liberal Party. And they're attracted to the One Nation ideas, and they're attracted to Labor's ideas far more. 9%. That is a horrific number. The second issue I'll take issue with Lucy on was this rubbish about negative equity. We have an entirely different home loan market to the US.
On.
You are talking
now you know
drivel.
better than the government trying to dress
drivel.
this up. No, we're not talking drivel.
I'm sorry.
But okay, Stephen,
you are literally you are taking a concept from America where they have an entirely different home mortgage market. The only time you have a problem is if you've just bought a house and suddenly you've got to sell it. Okay. Maybe you've become unemployed because the Reserve Bank's put interest rates up again.
Sure, but my point on this example,
your house values are plunging below what you've borrowed. If you've bought a 30-year mortgage, it doesn't matter unless you become a distressed seller. It's drivel.
No, okay,
utter drivel.
But right, I checked this in the past couple
of second point, sorry, Paul. No, if I could just respond to the second point.
All right, I thought we were already in the second point.
The second point.
Okay.
This idea. No, that was the first point. Still, the second point, and this is really important. The collapse in applications is in the investor side. So I've got some big news for you. The policy was designed to take investors out of that market. And it's
but
worked.
What do you think? What do you think the consequences of taking investors out of the market is going to do, Stephen? The repercussions right across the board to multiple businesses. You're looking at this from the macro level. What about actually starting to unpack? This doesn't just affect investors. You're thinking of all these wealthy investors that are coming and sweeping everybody out of the market. What about the mum and dad or the young nurse and her police officer husband who want to invest in property and to build a portfolio and leave something behind for their children? You keep acting like this is all just, it's a very kind of like socialist view. Tax the rich. We've got to go after all these rich investors with their 9
There's nothing
properties.
socialist about it.
Oh, come on, but the attitude is. The attitude is.
Economics 101. No,
okay.
This is right-wing economics 101 that I learned at ANU in the economics faculty.
Of course you did,
it's
along
really simple.
with
Investors
Lenin and Marx and all the rest of them. Yeah, all the rest of them over at ANU.
No, I went to a
nice
monetarist.
try. Nice try.
So let me just finish my point,
Nice
Lucy.
try trying to dress this up.
Disagreeable
Nice try.
Steve. Disagreeable Steve. No, let me be
that
very
got
clear.
you. I'm sorry. You didn't
They look at the best
He's so
investments.
offended.
They look at the best investments based on the tax position and tax return. And for the last 25 years, or 20 years since the change was made on capital gains, they went, the best investment for my investment portfolio is housing. Now what they're doing is they're looking at and going, housing's not the best investment anymore. They're going to invest in something else that gives them a better return than a house. They're not going on strike and not investing.
What, like a business? You mean where the government takes 47% off them when they sell it? What is a good investment in this country? What's this government doing to increase productivity? What increases productivity? Business. What are we experiencing in droves? The closures of businesses. People leaving.
Smarter investors than me who will work that out for themselves.
Yeah, because they're going offshore now, Stephen. They're going offshore now.
Economically wrong. Not socialist, economic, right-wing economics. They're making a decision based on where's the best tax advantage for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. They've just, suddenly houses aren't. They're going to invest somewhere else.
I want to show you one last thing. Okay. When mum and dad fight, I love it. All right, let's get to this here. All right. Brother and sister, I should say, of course. Now, we've got tomorrow in the UK is when there's going to be the by-election where Nigel Farage will, of course, win. He's running up against Count Binface. I have avoided the Count Binface of everything, but this grab is very funny, being when he was interviewed by an American reporter. Have a look.
Well, I am the galactic centre, and everything else just revolves around me like little planets.
Could you put that in, like, American political terms?
Yes. I'm the galactic centre, and everything else spins around me like little planets.
That's very funny. That's very funny, all right? I'm back at Nigel, but that was very funny. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Stephen.
Is it funny or is it just terrifying?
It is slightly terrifying. All right, we're going to talk to Megan Kelly next here on Paul Murray Live. Thanks for watching. That time of the week to talk to our favourite person in the world, the one, the only, the wonderful Megyn Kelly. Megyn, lovely to see you.
Great to be here.
So, AOC is running for president. No, she hasn't announced it, but she's old enough. She'll have the support. And the crazier the Democrats become, the more likely she is to become the nominee. And she is now starting to pretend the Jedi mind trick, stupid things I said in the past, they don't exist anymore.
I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy.
Absolutely not. She thinks as her party goes extra crazy, if she just reverts to mildly crazy, it's going to make her electable. But she was the leader of extra crazy for the past 10 years. She is the reason we have woke. And there's no woke 1.0 or 2.0. There's only one woke. And it's still here, and it's disgusting. It's like this toxic film that's all over us. It's like this cancer that's still in some of our cells that we need a little chemo to excise. And she's just like, ha, 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 I gave you pancreatic cancer. Ha, 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 it's so funny. I mean, truly, she cannot be allowed to get away with this.
Now, normally we don't talk sport, but I want to talk about the WNBA. No, not all the controversy about biological blokes trying to play in that league, which of course is for women, but an unbelievable incident where one player basically delivers a head-high tackle to another. Here's the incident.
Sophie Cunningham.
Just okay that Sophie's okay, or happy that Sophie's okay, because man, that's a hit.
Yeah, when you're in the air.
And then, amazingly, the person who committed the violence starts whinging white privilege online.
And then denies it. So this case of Dejanay Carrington has got every element to it. This is a Black woman born to a family of privilege. Her father was a professional athlete. I think her mother was too. She's got a lot of successful people in her family. And she winds up going to Stanford University, where she has a double major, African-American studies, not great, there's no future in that, and psychology, equally pointless. But okay, whatever. She's an athlete there, so they put her on the easy track academically, and she gets her degree and moves on to the WNBA. When she graduates from Stanford, one of our most prestigious universities, she looks like a normal human being. Jason Whitlock, great commentator over here, he happens to be Black. He's unsparing when people play the race card. He said, he looked at her picture on graduation from Stanford and said, this is every Black father's dream, to have a girl like this. She's stunning. She's tall. She's beautiful. She has the long hair. When she gave interviews, she sounded smart, determined to make something out of herself, not too self-aggrandizing, not too high, not too low, just somebody you could relate to. Then she gets drafted into the WNBA, which is even more of a woke indoctrination factory than American universities are. And within a couple of years, her long, beautiful Black hair is now 10 times blonder than mine. She looks like a Lil' Kim imitation, and that's not a compliment. She now has got like the heavy lashes and the weird eyebrows and the overly indulged, I don't know if it's filler or just bad makeup, but she's extra, as the kids would say. But that's what this league does to you. And then on top of all that, she's got to be like that bad, who takes down Sophie Cunningham, the one woman who actually does have naturally blonde hair and is white and has spoken out on the trans issue. Dejanay gets ejected from the game because this is such a flagrant foul, level 2, which is worse than level 1. And she decides to go on her Threads account, which tells us half of what we need to know, and tweets out in all caps, white privilege. Well, a shitstorm rained down on her because there is no white privilege in the WNBA. That's a joke. There is plenty of Black female athlete privilege in America, never mind in the WNBA. So she tweets this out, and then the storm comes, and sorry for all the swearing, and she tries to say, sorry, you dumbasses, but I wasn't referring to that. You just jump to conclusions. I am educated in privilege, okay? Like, I went to school for this, and that's not what I was talking. Meanwhile, she seems to have forgotten. She CC'd, she added the Indiana Fever in her tweet.
And another part of this that is just outrageous. The coach of the woman who got hit comes out to support the person who hit her.
And she would never have done that if the player she represented had been black and the assailant had been white. This woman, Stephanie White, is another one where she's a white woman. She's in there. She's like, yeah, she's going to fight for this. She's not. I'm like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to sound either like a man or like a black athlete. Is that what? I don't get it, because women don't sound like this. Normal women don't talk like this. We don't drop the G's off of every word and dress like men and try to project like men. Like, honestly, this is why, I don't want my daughter to go into professional sports of any kind. Like maybe ice skating. But like every other sport seems to want to turn these girls into men, some sort of dominant male character, and lose their femininity. And if they maintain their femininity, like a Sophie Cunningham, then you're MAGA Barbie. Then it's like then you're not taken seriously.
Yeah, I've got some fears whether ice skating is the peaceful sport. Remember Tonya Harding? I know a long time ago, but still rather violent. By the way, why did the fire department turn up to your house this week?
Well, it's not my forte, Paul. As I like to say when people ask me, like, can you play tennis? Can you do this? I always say, anything I'm skilled at, you already know about. I don't have a secret set of skills that like I'm going to unleash on you someday like I'm a great chef. So I got the idea to cook some breaded chicken, like panko chicken, which I think is pretty basic. Sisters out there, am I right? It's pretty basic. Most moms can do it. I've done it before, in my defense. However, we're in a home we've owned for 10 years, but it was just redone. So the stove is new. And it has like one of those things that automatically turns on the fan when it gets smoky, and it didn't work. Okay. So I guess it got a little too smoky too quickly. And before I knew it, every fire alarm in the whole house was going off. I'm not sure what to do here. So the firemen show up. If my home had been burning down in a 5-alarm blaze, they would have been wearing nothing less. I mean, they showed up, but for like a hose. They were ready to help. It was 5 firemen in total. They came, they opened the door, they see me there, totally fine. They go, did you try to cook? Yes. Yes, I did.
Oh, I'm so with you. The only special skills I have, can't cook, can't dance, is this, right? All you can see is all I have.
It was a sign from God, really. This was just a reminder from God. You can't do this. And I'm not going to touch that stove again this summer. I will touch the oven, which seems less likely to turn into flame.
Lovely to see you, Megan.
See you, Paul.
Now, as you know, it is not a sometimes food, it is an all-day, every week feature of this program, which is that we like to show you the dumb social media videos that are made for by the specially paid by staff member to the politicians, the showbiz for ugly people, the talking down, the patronising presentation. Well, this one is from Alice Jordan Baird, who is the member for Gorton. Enjoy. Legislators. Oh, our old mate Cara Cook is here. What's she doing to entertain the kids today? Josh Burns is the Labor member for Macnamara and apparently likes to play the guitar.
This is so stupid. Don't put this on social media. Fill out the census for some consensus. Evidence is mounting, so make sure you count it.
Josh, go away. See you tomorrow night.